Welcome. Let's look at this question. Which cranial nerve runs the shortest course? The answer to this question is the olfactory nerve. If you look at the olfactory nerve, if you check how it emerges and also where it terminates, you see that it is one of the cranial nerves that runs the shortest distance. If you use this image here as illustration, this is where we have the nasal cavity. And we know that at the roof of the nasal cavity is where we have the olfactory segment that is designed for olfactory function. So it is within this olfactory segment that we have the olfactory nerve. So if you look at this structure here that is arrowed in black, this is the olfactory nerve. The olfactory nerve, we know it is a bipolar neuron with two axonal extensions from its cell body. So this is where we have the cell body of the olfactory nerve, and you see one axonal extension directed towards the olfactory segment of the nasal cavity. And you see another extension directed upward, where it enters into the cranial cavity, where further progression will occur. So if you look at this region that is also arrowed here in black, this is where we have the origin of the olfactory nerve. So it is safe for us to say that the olfactory nerve begins from the roof of the nasal cavity. So if it begins from here, it will be directed into the cranial cavity up here, where further progression will occur. So if you look at this structure that is arrowed here in yellow, this is the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. This is the pad of bone that is seen to demarcate the cranial cavity up here, and the olfactory segment of the nasal cavity down here. And of course, we know that the olfactory nerve needs to pass through this structure for it to enter into the cranial cavity. And this is why we have the creation of foramina on the cribriform plate of ethmoid, so as to allow for the passage of this olfactory nerve to enter into the cranial cavity. Specifically, it will be directed into the anterior cranial fossa, because it is the anterior cranial fossa that is seen to be positioned above the nasal cavity. And of course, when the olfactory nerve now gains access into the cranial cavity, specifically the anterior cranial fossa, you see it directed into the olfactory bulb. And this is what is arrowed here in red and also highlighted in blue. Within the olfactory bulb, we have a synapse between the olfactory nerve and also the mitral nerve or the tuctive nerve. These nerves are the second order neurons in the olfactory pathway. But you see that within the olfactory bulb is where we have the termination of the olfactory nerve. And of course, it's at these specific points that it will be forming a synapse with the second order neuron. So we can say that the olfactory nerve is seen to terminate at this point. So the olfactory nerve, where it begins from the roof of the nasal cavity, you see it terminating in the olfactory bulb, where it will be forming a synapse with the second order neuron along the olfactory pathway. If you look at the course that it runs from where it begins to where it terminates, you see that it is the cranial nerve that runs the shortest course, considering the path that it runs. So we can say that it begins from this region here that is arrowed in white, which is the olfactory segment of the nasal cavity. And of course, this is around the roof of the nasal cavity. And you see it terminating up here that is also arrowed in white within the olfactory bulb. So the course that it runs from the olfactory segment to the olfactory bulb, of course, is indeed a short distance. And this is why the olfactory nerve is the cranial nerve that runs the shortest distance. So thanks for watching this video.